Right, as you might not know, this is David Pleasant. I'm sure you must know who he is, considering there's so many people in here. We're going to hear a few anecdotes on his life story, about the days of his Commodore years, where he started his career, and also what he's doing now.
Welcome everybody, thank you so much for taking the time to attend. I really appreciate it. It's amazing. I was just saying to somebody earlier on a few minutes ago that if somebody had said to me back in '94, say, you know, in 30 odd years time, and you walk into a room and people would be saying, can I have your autograph please? I would have said, what are you on and can I have some? Because it's just unbelievable really, isn't it? You know, who would ever have guessed that, you know, the Commodore and the Amiga legacy is growing more and more every year. It's just, and I go to a lot of these events, and what's wonderful to see is people bringing their children. I'm not talking about really young children, but children, you know, 10, 11, 12, and they're getting into the game just as much as you guys did when you were that age, and that's pretty amazing to see, really. You know. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll start with just give you a little bit of background of kind of how I ended up joining Commodore, because it's my life has been full of incredible flukes, things that happen that you just can't believe happen, and me joining Commodore was one of those occasions. But just to go back a little bit earlier than that, in my younger days, when I could get into a nice 32 jeans or somebody else's jeans, I was a professional musician, and I was living in Australia, and I came back to the UK on my way to study in Spain. That was when I went back to the UK. My parents and family were still in the UK, although they had moved. I was born in Great Yarmouth, but they moved to Shrewsbury. So I came back to the UK, and literally on my way to Spain. And of course I met somebody and ended up marrying. But my life in those days was bliss, because I was teaching guitar at Shrewsbury Public School, which is one of the top schools in the country. About 2.5 days a week there, and I had about 30 private students, and used to come to me for lessons. I played in a restaurant a couple of nights a week, and I had my own little dance company, 2 girl dancers, a singer and another guitarist who was a student of mine, and we were doing cabaret and clubs and, you know, and other wonderful stories I can tell you about playing Bernard Manning's club, for example. And I'll just tell you this as an aside. It's a bit like Ronnie Corbett. But yeah, I was at Bernard Manning's club, and whenever we played, and we got a lot of bookings, because in these clubs it would either be a comedian or a singer that would be on the top of the bill. And so having a flamenco, we never clashed, so we got plenty of work. So anyway, he was, Bernard Manning was an amazing animal. And I used to go on first and play a couple of solo track songs before, not songs, just play pieces, before I brought the dancers on, so you could end up with a crescendo. Anyway, he introduced me, and I've never forgotten it. He said, I'm now going to introduce somebody to you who reckons he can play the guitar. If this guy can play the guitar, I will show my ass to the Vatican. I've never forgotten that, so you know, it was pretty difficult to walk on stage after that, but it was fun. Anyway, my life was really blessed, and anyway, one day my new wife just turned around to me and said, I want you to get a real job or else. Which I know I should have said 2 words, and the second one was off, but I didn't. And I sat there, as God is my witness, I sat and think, what the hell can I do? I got, you know, because when I left home at 17 and went to Australia, I was sick of my family, sick of people. And when I got to Australia, I just did anything I needed to do to work. And I did everything. I was a bus conductor for 6 months in Sydney, that was a laugh. I was a scaffolder, did trenches, anything to make a living. So I had no skills really of any kind. And when I went back to Shrewsbury to visit my parents, my father had bought, he was an electronics engineer, my father had bought a shop where they used to sell goods, they used to sell mostly small appliances, and he did sell and rent colour TVs, and he used to repair TVs. And anyway, honestly, within 2 or 3 days of me being told I've got to get a real job, guy walks into the shop and he said, David, will you come and have a coffee with me? I said, sure. And it turned out that this guy, Phil Evans, his name was, he was the branch manager of the local credit company called Practical Credit Services, which was part of the Provident Group. And my father used to supply people with goods using Practical Credit Services, so he was a client of theirs. So this Phil Evans says to me, he says, right, David, he said, I've been in this shop a few times, and I've got to be honest with you, he said, you've got a particularly good way with people. And, you know, he said, I've always admired, you know, how you talk to people. He said, my business is expanding, and I've been told I need to get an assistant manager. Would you like the job? 2 or 3 days after I've been told to get a job, with no idea what I was going to do. I swear to him I'm not. So anyway, that led into me getting into sales and marketing, and I had a fabulous career. Anyway, the next step in my career, which was a really good step, was again another fluke. I actually took my wife to Australia because she was English. We went back to Australia and took her with me. And the first job I got was in a building society, and I was selling investments. I wasn't particularly happy there, but it was okay. But there was a guy that I worked with, and he was very desperately unhappy with his job. And anyway, I spotted an advert in the newspaper. So I took his name is Graham Williamson. I said, Graham, have a look at this. And there was an advert, and it didn't say all that much, but it just said a bank about banks and the credits and kind of stuff like that. And I said, have a look at that. So anyway, he goes along with the interview. I wasn't really looking. Anyway, he came back later that day, and I said, how did you get on? He said, oh, I said, I was there for a while. I said, it sounds interesting, but not really for me. And he said, I left early. He said, the reason was that they said, after they explained what the job was, they said, anybody who wants to stay on and be considered for the job, stay behind and we'll interview you individually, and we'll do it alphabetical order. And his name was Williamson. So he didn't really, wasn't an interest. So he came back and he told me about it. And when he told me what the job was, I went, this is phenomenal. The job is phenomenal. And what it was 11 banks got together and they formed a company called Charge Card Services Limited. And they launched a mass market consumer credit card. And that was before Visa and MasterCard got into Australia. And the job was selling to major retail, which is what my background was. And anyway, so I rang them up in Sydney and said, hey, what's going on? You have all bloody interviews. I sent in an application and, oh, Mr. Gunn, I'm sorry, must have lost it somewhere. Would you like to go to the second round of interviews tomorrow? Fine. So blagging away, and I got that job. Really complete through. I was one of 4 permanent staff, and all the rest of the staff were seconded by all the banks, some for 2 months, some for 6 months, some for a year, in order to get this thing launched. It was the most fantastic job. I got a brand new Ford Falcon car, fully expensed. I got a 1% mortgage. Hello. Yeah. It was phenomenal. It really was phenomenal. Anyway, cut a long story short, I decided then to get into selling intangibles, and I joined 3M company, which became a blue chip company, and had a great job with them. And then from there, I got poached by Pioneer Electronics as sales manager for them, and I loved that as well. Anyway, the time came when we got our first child, and he was about, I think he was 15 or 16 months old. And my missus really wanted to come back to the UK because she got a baby and all her family's in the UK. And I said, actually, I'd quite like to move back. I'd like to see if I can get myself an international role because I felt ready for it. Anyway, we went on holiday. On the way back, we stopped in Thailand for 2 weeks at a holiday. Then I put my missus on the way on the plane. And I spent the next 7 weeks travelling the world to see what was going to be next. And this was in '83. Anyway, that 7 weeks, that became very obvious that computing, and in particular home computing, was going to be the next thing. So when I came back to the UK, in those days, no internet. There was the Thursday papers and the Sunday papers. That's where if you look for a decent job, that's where you look. So I looked at all these jobs. What do I want to do? And I needed anything to do with computing. So I looked at jobs, and if I thought I could do the job, and I wouldn't fool myself or anybody else, then I applied for it. Anyway, I got on the phone to this one advert, who was an agency, a recruitment agency in London. And it must have taken me half an hour just to persuade this guy to give me an interview, because I've got no computing background at all. So anyway, I arrived, and I'll never forget it, as I arrived at this building, I held the door and there was a lady just leaving. I remember it like it was yesterday. I walked into this guy, and he said, Mr. Pleasance, come and sit down, and we had him probably about half an hour interview, something like that. And at the end of it, he said, Mr. Pleasance, he said, there's no doubt in my mind that this job that you come for, you can do the standard on your head, but I'm not going to put you forward for it. Thanks a lot. Got up to leave, he said, no, sit down. He said, the reason I'm not going to do that, he said, is because you've got the most incredible retail background that I've ever seen from anybody, because everybody was solely a retailer. And he said, as a recruitment agent, it would be remiss of me not to put you in a job that utilises those skills. So I said, no, but he said, sit down. He said, did you see somebody was leaving as you arrived? Lady, I said, yeah. He said, well, she's just given me a brief for a job, but because you came in immediately she left, I've not even had the chance to write this out. He said, no, I think you'd be perfect for it. And she was with COMMODORE. They were looking for somebody to sell pets into the retail market. And they didn't know, do we get somebody who knows about computing but doesn't know about retail, or do we get somebody who knows about retail and knows about computing? And he said, I told her she needs to get somebody who's a retail expert because she can learn the product sort of thing. And so next thing you know, 3 or 4 days later, I'm in front of the MD and I got the job at COMMODORE. If that's not a fluke, I don't know what is. Never advertised. Yeah, and that's happened all my life, different things, and you know, I feel really blessed about that. You know, it's amazing. Anyway, so I joined COMMODORE in June of '83, and it was interesting times because the first day I arrived, the guy I was reporting to was a guy called Mike Tate. He's actually quite a nice guy, but when I first met him, I thought he was a real wimp. First thing is, he didn't even have anything for me to do. I sat down and he didn't give me anything to do. And anyway, he's sitting there and he's working away, and then his secretary came in. He only just recently joined COMMODORE. His secretary came in, Anita, and she was Spanish. So we hit it up immediately because I was speaking a little Spanish then. Anyway, she said, Mr. Tate, she said, I've got to go to the supermarket to buy some more coffees and teas and things. Do you have a preference for tea? What would you like? And he sat in front of me and he ran his wife and he said, hi darling, what tea do I like? As God is my witness, I thought, now you can see why I thought he was a real wimp, you know. Anyway, he didn't have anything for me to do, which I found really bizarre. He hadn't even been briefed, I think, you know. Anyway, so I walked around and I found the then marketing manager, called John Baxter. And I said to John, I said, hi John, my name's David Pleasance, I've just joined the company today. I said, can you give me something to do? He said, I can. He said, there's a new shop just opened up on the North Circular Road. It's a big computer shop, dedicated computer shop. He said, it wasn't there. He said, I've meant to go and have a look in there. Go and have a look. Drop in there and come back and give us a little report about what it's like. So I was found this place. And as I walked in, he said, who are you from? And I said, I'm from COMMODORE, come in. And they gave me a glass of champagne. I thought, I'm going to like this job, you know, this is amazing, you know. And it turned out it was their open day. They'd actually sent invitations to COMMODORE who hadn't been able to answer. And I just went there complete fruit on that day. It's amazing. I said, I'm going to love this job, you know. Anyway, so what happened was, I took it on myself. The first thing I need to do, because I've not been in the UK for 4 or 5 years, I need to reacquaint myself with all of the multiple retailers. Who's who, what do they do, how good are they? So I visited all the Dixons and Comet and Currys and all of those people, trying to determine who would be the best bet for me to launch pets into. Right? I still knew nothing about computers, and that hasn't changed. Anyway,
around 1977, isn't it? The pet era?
Well, when he first came out, but they were still selling them in 1985 when I joined. And in fact, we had the Royal Warrant, which is another story I'll tell you about. We had the Royal Warrant because we sold pets into the Queen's household. on those. But anyway, so in my evaluation of all the retailers, it became obvious to me that our best bet to go with would be Lasky's. Do you remember Lasky's?
Yeah.
Lasky's used to have 54 shops across the country, and in 26 of those 54 shops, they had a store within a store concept, which is called Micropoint, and they were selling business computer-related products. They only got PCs and floor PCs, but it seemed to me pretty obvious that they're the ones to go with. So I went straight to their head office and spoke to the manager. I want to do some research. Can you give me permission to talk to the microphone managers? So we gave them that in writing. Always a good trick to do that, so you can't get thrown out of people when I talk to you. Anyway, I was in the 24th of 26 shops that I'd already done, and I was pre-settled. And I was in the 24th store. I had 2 left to do, and in those days, there was no mobile phones. Phone call, and this was Eileen, the girl who actually recruited me from the early days, and she said, listen, she said, stop what you're doing, you've got to come back. The Commodore 64 sales are going through the roof. We need somebody to look after the major retailers, and you're it. So I went straight, I never sold one pet, ever. Mind you, this is when I found out that the biggest lesson I learned ever is that Commodore never, ever, ever had any kind of a business plan. Because I was recruited specifically to sell pets into retail. That's what I was recruited for. And then I find out, oh, they're not making enough pets to fulfill another market, i.e. retail. They weren't going to make any more. I mean, but I was recruited for that job, so it just gives you an idea. But that was, for me, that was great, because I mean, I ended up talking, selling into all the big stores, but I was selling the 64, which of course is hot property. And as in some ways, it's the university's history. But what was really good about all of that was that it gave me the opportunity to do the marketing, which is really what my forte is. I'm a marketeer. I'm a very good salesman, trust me, I am. But marketing is I'm always looking for ideas that are outside the circle. And that's when we started putting all the 64 packs together, which we actually kept the 64 selling for at least 2 years beyond its true sell-by date, because of the packs that we put together. And that was huge fun as well. It was really amazing fun. Then comes the era of the Amiga, and of course initially the Amiga was just 1,000, which at £1,000 was not we were called the toy boys, and so we couldn't have that product because it wasn't a consumer product, which is fair enough. I mean, it was one of those products that should never have been really in some ways. It should either have been a 500 from the beginning, or a proper business machine with a lot more, as we all know. But anyway, I never had that product for quite a while. And then what happened, and this is, again, I think it's quite interesting, is that the person I actually reported to was a guy called Paul Welsh, and he was in charge, he was the sales manager for consumer products, and I was national accounts manager. And he didn't like me, and I know, they knew recruiting why he didn't like me, and that was because he was one of these guys who only wanted to employ his own people. And I was already working within Commodore, and every now and again, quite often in fact, Commodore would say, no more outside recruitment. If you need to recruit somebody, you recruit them from within. And I was that person because I was there, and I've got the expertise and all the rest of it. So he didn't like me because he didn't recruit me. Anyway, cut a long story short, I had a new MD came in, one bearer, Nick Bessie, who was really good, which he wished he'd stayed. He was from IBM, he was a very smart guy. Anyway, he said, within a couple of days, right there, he said, I'm going out with you. And I said, I'm not going married. Anyway, he said, no, he said, look, meet me tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I said, no, if you want to come out with me tomorrow, you meet me at 7, because I've got an appointment with the co-op in Lumslow, Cheshire at 9 o'clock, to get real world, Anyway, we sat in the car, and he said, right, he said, I want you to tell me what's going on, so I can get an understanding of what's happening from the field. And I said, well, do you want me to tell you what you want to hear, or do you want me to tell you the truth? He said, you better tell me the truth, otherwise you're in trouble. I said, okay. I said, my biggest challenge is Paul Welsh, my boss. He said, oh yeah, everybody says that. I said, no, hear me out. I said, the problem is that the customers hate him. They absolutely hate him. And it makes it really difficult for me because, you know, he's left a sour taste in their mouth. I said, I don't know why, and I really didn't. He said, oh, I think we're exaggerating, actually. As God is my witness, we walked into the co-op at Wilmslow, and the marketing manager, Peter, came down and he said, first thing he said, hello David, he said, you haven't got that bastard Welsh with you, have you? And Nick actually looked at me as if to say, you've set this up. I swear to God. I said, Nick, how could I have set it up? I didn't even know until last night at 6 o'clock that you would be out with me today. And I made this appointment 3 weeks ago, you know. Anyway, so Nick says, well, he said, would you mind telling me why you just said that? And Peter said, it's no problem at all. He said, that guy's never going to set foot in this place again. And so Nick said, why is that? And he said, well, he said, you guys agreed to take some stock back from us. They made a mistake and the stock was some sort, I don't know what it was, but he said, Paul agreed to take some stock back for us and issue us a credit note for it. And he said, and he was in here 2 weeks ago, and I challenged him again, and he promised me faithfully that I'd have a credit note within 2 or 3 days. He said, and at that moment in time, I was walking straight into a board meeting, and I said, I've fixed it, gentlemen, and I've got assurance that I'll have this credit note within 2 or 3 days, and the bastard is not delivering. So he's never sent for me there again. So it's funny how things happen, as it really is. Anyway, so I'd only been there a little while, so I was not ready to take on sales manager's job. No way, and I wouldn't put myself forward because I knew I was ready. So he said, and Nick said to me, right, he said, I'm not allowed to recruit anybody else from outside. He said, who is there in the company who could do that Paul's job? And I said, I know somebody. He said, who's that? And I said, it's a guy called Tom Hart. Tom Hart? He said, Tom works in the accounts department. I said, yeah. He said, well, what on earth are you putting him for? I said, well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, I said, our customers love him. He's been doing their accounts for a long, long time. They trust him, his word is his bond. That's an amazing start. Secondly, I said, I know he wants to get into the sales department. He's mentioned it to me. And I think it'd be absolutely ideal. So next thing you know, Paul Welsh is on another mission somewhere. And Tom is my boss, which was absolutely perfect because we were mates, you know, similar. It was fantastic. Now, the reason I mentioned all of this is because not long after all of this, I don't know if anybody knows that Jack Jamil's 2IC, his number 2 man, was a guy called Bob Bellows, who was at Commodore with Jack Jamil when I was there. Remember, it was in June '83. But by, I think it was about March of '84, Jack Jamil had gone. He'd been kicked out. There's a lot of conjecture as to what happened, but I know the truth, and it's in my book. Anyway, what happened was that Jack Jamil went and he found what's it called, El Toro, who were making Amiga, what eventually became Amiga, and they were in desperate trouble. They were financially, you know, on their knees. And he did a deal with them. He issued them a check for $500,000 and said, if you don't pay it back by this date, I'll own the company. They had no choice. So once he'd done that, he immediately went out and negotiated and he bought Atari for $1. Because Atari owed zillions in debt. And everybody, you know, was supposed to take on these debts, but they never did. So his plan was to buy Atari and then use Atari to launch the Amiga. And in the meantime, of course, Commodore had gone behind his back and offered a much better deal. So when he found out, he would storm them back to them and said, I'm going to sue you up the yin yang. And they just handed his check back and never even cashed his check. That check is, I think only Jamil still got it in his room up on a frame on the wall. But anyway, the reason I mention all this is because Bob Bellows eventually joined Jack at Atari and serving Paul Welsh. Right? So I had an opportunity when the 500 came out, it was my turn to get my own back. And I took on the mission. My mission in life was to kill the ST at all costs. However I do it, so everything's going to be legal, but I'm going to make sure I sell it. First thing I did was I appointed. We never had independent dealers directly because we couldn't handle thousands of accounts, small numbers. So we had distributors. and the distributor would buy wholesale from us, they'd handle all the accounts and they'd distribute the rest of it. And we had 5 of them, and we had 4 originally, but I took on another one, and I took one which was Atari's distributor as well, took them on purpose. Anyway, kind of long story short, we absolutely killed PST, and it was all done to marketing. Things like the Batman pack definitely helped. But what I also did was that I've always believed that the best people to sell computers are the independent dealers, because they know their business. They work with customers. They're not like Dixon, they don't even know. The best they can do is to bring something up and put it in a plastic bag. Let's be honest about it. So I knew that the independent dealers were our lifeblood. So what I did was I ran this promotion, and what we did is that we gave every single Commodore product a number of points. And we said, right, over this 3 months period, if you reach this number of points, we're going to take you on one hell of a holiday. The first one we ever did was actually with a company called Lightning Distribution. And we took those people to Mexico City and Acapulco. Right? It was lavish. We stayed in the Acapulco Princess, which in those days in the top 5 hotels in the world. And we laid on everything. It was just phenomenal. And so as soon as I think it was 35 or 36 dealers plus a few from and of course, as soon as they all got back, they ring up all the Mexicans, you don't know what you missed. That was incredible. So then we put all these different places, and the difficulty was finding somewhere better to go to. We went all over the place. But the bottom line was that every time somebody went into an independent dealer store and said, I want to buy an ST, no you don't. You want to buy an Amiga. And the reason was that they were getting all these points. Plus, of course, it was a better product. But we absolutely killed the ST, and that's kind of how you do it. Plan, do the process. So interesting times, I mean, I know that what happened in the end, I was really upset at the end. In fact, I left the industry completely for a lot of years because of what happened. But I don't think, even though it didn't go the way we wanted it to, I don't think it changed very much. Because I couldn't wait to get to work every day. Every day was an absolute thrill, I had a fantastic team of people. There was 6 people in my team plus me. And we just kept knocking it out of the park. Everything we did, it was challenging, but they were halcyon days. Really. So does anybody want to ask any questions now? Because I've only just covered a little bit of loads. That's why you must, if you haven't bought the book, why not? Don't leave today without buying it. And I will sign it for you. I warn you that it will be worth less if I say it.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you could change one thing, what would it have been? If you had one chance when you were there to have changed something?
It was how we got cheated out of the management buyer. Because we put a business plan together, Colin and I put a business plan together, and we raised $50 million in 94.5. You try raising $50 million today. And we raised that because the business plan we put together was so bloody good. And then we got cheated out of it. And that's when I felt really bad and bruised, because we should have won that bid.
Is that when ESCOM won it?
Yeah. Yeah, what happened was, just very briefly, is that ESCOM recruited somebody who used to work at Commodore. They were all ex-Commodore. Manfred Schmidt, who was the head of ESCOM, he was ex-Commodore. Bernard Van Tien was ex-Commodore Holland, who was the biggest crook known to man, and I can prove that. He's dead now, and so is Manfred Schmidt, but I'm not talking about attorneys, I can prove it. And they also recruited a guy called Petr Tichenko, and Petr Tichenko stole half of our investors.
Yeah, the last
Chinese manufacturing company.
Yeah.
It was the most perfect match. We had $25 million of money from venture capitalists and high wealth individuals and all of that, and then we had 25 million coming in from New Star, who were going to manufacture for us. It would have been perfect if you were in partnership with the manufacturer. No better way. We already knew that they've been ripping off Sega and Nintendo products for years, and they've been told by the Chinese government that they've got to get legit. But anyway, they were poached away from us, and therefore, people say, well, you still had 25 million and it sold, 14 million, why didn't you bid? Well, it's pretty obvious, and that is because Commodore left all the suppliers in huge debts. And do you think any of those people would supply us with credit terms? Not a hope in hell. So we did all the numbers, we worked out how long it would take us to earn the credibility to start getting terms. We worked in, and Colin was the most incredible financial guy, and we worked out it would take us 7 months. So we financed it for 7 months. So when it came to the point where we only had 25 million, we knew if we'd outbid and bought the assets, within 3 months we would have been bankrupt and lost all that money that these people had invested in us. And there's no way that we would do that.
Was that, sorry to ramble on, but was that the same company that did the dodgy deal with the CD32 as well? Was that a completely different kettle of fish?
I don't know what you mean by a dodgy deal with the CD32.
Well, they were all sitting in a warehouse in, I can't remember the name of the country, but they were then selling, because they weren't being sold, and they were being sold under the radar.
No. What happened was, and I mean this was really annoying, is that the CD32, in the 12 and a half years that I was in Commodore, was the only time that they planned to do a launch properly.
Yeah.
And I was in control of all of it, not all of it, but I mean, for example, I had got, because I built this fantastic relationship with the software publishers, I got development kit in every one of them. They were all developing specifically for the CD32. And the plan was that we were going to launch it in late spring, early summer of '94. That was the plan. We've got orders up to the yin-yang 1200s for the Christmas of '93. And then Mediae comes to me and says, I want to launch the 32 in September. I want the extra revenue. And I said, I don't know what planet you're from, but you're not going to get extra revenue. You are going to kill the 1200 sales, absolutely no doubt about it. And there's no software ready for it. It's going to be a disaster. Why do it? But he insisted, he believed that he'd get more revenue. And of course, all it did exactly as I predicted. But then the worst thing of it was not only did it kill the 1200 sales, but we couldn't get enough 32s because they were in the Philippines, right? They were held in the Philippines because there was some tax owed to the Philippines that wasn't paid, so they wouldn't let them be released. Okay. What happened after that? If Escom got them, I have no idea. To be honest with you, I couldn't care less.
Okay.
I couldn't care less at all.
But he did the same, Mediae did the same to the 500 as well, didn't he?
No, that's another story. I'm not going to tell you all the stories.
Sorry, I'll be quiet.
No, not at all. I mean, normally I come on, but all these stories are in the book and more. There's lots. It's a good read. Anybody who's got it, tell me, isn't it a good read?
Yeah,
it is because there are so many things that people just have no idea what went on, and I'm telling you the truth and what went on, and I don't care. And nobody's come back to me and complained. They can't because it's the truth. But CD32 is not good. I don't know, when am I supposed to do this quiz, this competition? Where are the boys that gone?
I'll double check, it'll be 2 secs.
Yeah,
we might be doing it next, but I'll double check.
Because I think there's some prizes and I've got some questions and I've given some answers away already by rambling on. And you can tell I've had an incredible life. I mean, honestly, as I said, I could not wait to get to work every day. It was, it's one of those things that, you just say, thank you, God. I'm not a believer, but maybe every 13 seconds you listen, It was just a wonderful job. It's a shame. Because when you read the book and you see all the ideas that we can...
Steve, it'll be 2 secs and we'll run through the quiz.
Okay. When you see all the ideas that we put forward and the ones that got rejected out of hand, by people who didn't have a clue what day of the week it was, incredible. But when you got something like Irving Gould, who I really liked Irving, he was the major shareholder in Commodore. And he ended up more or less kicking Jack with that. Irving had 22% of the shares, and at that time Jack had 6%. But I'll just tell you a very interesting story about Irving Gould. He was a very wealthy man, very wealthy. and he was a tax exile in 3 countries. Every 2 or 3 days he had to move between the Bahamas, between Canada and the US. He couldn't stay. If he stayed longer than 3 days, they didn't give him the tax. So he was using the company jet all the time. Every week he was moving around. But anyway, I had the audacity one day, because I got on really over it. And I just said to him, look, Irving, I said, I know this is really a really naughty thing to ask, but, and if you don't want to answer, I understand, but would you mind telling me how you made your money? You'll love this story. It's amazing. And he said, I don't mind telling you, he said, I took the best piss of my life. Exact words. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, David, he said, I was in the Four Seasons restaurant in Manhattan, which in those days it was the place to be, right? And he said, I was with some friends. He said, I just needed to take a leak, as you did. He said, so I got up and went to the bathroom. He said, I just stood up, just about, and the guy comes in, the guy's going, excuse my language, the guy's coming in saying, idiots, can't fucking believe what these fucking guys have just turned down. And he was really heated, this guy, and so Eddie says, oh, he says, you sound a bit upset. Oh, I am. He said, this is idiots of mine who I work for. And Eddie said, well, what's the matter? And he said, well, he said, I've just brought to their table a fantastic opportunity, and they've turned it down. So Eddie said, oh, do you mind telling me what this opportunity is? I said, I don't mind telling you. He said, nothing to lose now. He said, you know how people transport goods all around the world, mostly by sea? And he said, you know how it's a nightmare when they're trying to load in the hull of a ship, barrels of oil, grain, electronics, and all these things, and they're not really meant to mix with each other, right? These guys have come up with a system with 20-foot and 40-foot containers. They've got trucks built specially for them, they're having ships built specially for them, and they're going to move product all around the world. He said, and I've just brought my company's table the rights of the container ships for the USA, and I turned them down. And Irving said, you just found the right man, and you're going to be involved. And that's where he made his money, made a fortune. So it was the best business. So much for their 2 minutes.
I think he came in and you were still talking.
Yeah, well, I was only trying to fill in the time. I think.
If I may say this, you're blessed. You are inspiring, coming away I felt a few, you know.
Yeah.
A few others. Maybe it's the magic of this room with the right number of people or whatever, but it's very
Yeah, but as I say, I'm completely blessed. And the most amazing thing for me is that, although, you know, I'm a bit older now, and sometimes my memory does, generally speaking, I have no problem in telling all these stories because it's the truth. And I couldn't be alive because my memory's not good enough. I can't remember what lies I've told. So for me, that's another 2 minutes. That'll go on my bill. No, so but for me, and it's a joy to tell it, as I think you can tell, and I love telling it because these are things that it's my legacy, if you like. And I was talked into writing the book. I've got to be honest with you, I have no intention of writing a book whatsoever. I didn't even know where to start. But so many people said, David, you have such great stories. And they said to me, the Commodore and Amiga fans deserve to know what happened. And that's really kind of what triggered it for me, you know. And the thing was, I kept waking up in the middle of the night thinking, I can't get that in. If I don't put that in, I'll be wrong, you know. Crazy, crazy. So, here we are.
Right, we're just going. Hello. Right, we're just going to do a competition. It's going to be first hand up. Dave's going to call out the questions.
That's what I'm glad because I can be my own writing.
Take 5 tablets, 8.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but you don't want to know what that tablet's for. Okay, question number 1. Where was Commodore based in the UK before Corby?
Maidstone.
Hands
up.
Mato?
No.
No, you just said it.
No.
Begins with an S.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Anyone?
Yeah, nobody knows, as they said.
Begins with an S, but I can't remember what it said.
You want to come back to that one then?
We'll come back to
Then we
that.
can Google.
Okay, who designed, there are two
There you
people,
go.
who designed,
Oh, hang on.
Shrewsbury.
no.
Salisbury?
Try,
What was that, sorry?
Salisbury?
No,
Right, it begins with an
no,
S.
no. Okay, who designed the Boeing Ball demo? There's two people involved.
Do you have both or just the one?
Well, let's see what we get.
They're like in the
RJ and...
He's right, he's
Yeah.
got it. He's got them both, yeah.
What's the other guy with the beard? Yeah, RJ and the other guy. Daylight, with the cap and baseball cap, yeah.
Okay, right now, I mentioned in my talk earlier on that we appointed 5 distributors, and one of them was also an Atari distributor. Can you name them?
Yeah. Silica.
Yeah, you got it. First. Right, and the Batman pack was a huge success. Which software publisher produced Batman the movie game?
Ocean.
I don't know which one was first.
Give us a guess.
Give it a guess.
Okay. Now, what was the Amiga 600 supposed to have been called?
Amiga 300.
Right now, which 2 famous people were at the launch of the CD-TV in New York?
Oh.
So there.
Yeah.
Send them there.
Yep.
CDTV?
Yeah.
CDTV.
Oh, no, that was the Amiga 1000. That was the Amiga 1000 launch.
No, it wasn't the CD-TV.
No, Debbie Harry and Andy Warhol.
You used to do us funny. That was, yeah.
Oh, in that case, I'm sorry, I got it wrong.
That's why I put my hand in.
Yeah,
No, I
absolutely.
think you answered 3 questions because you corrected the question itself.
Yeah.
So,
You've won enough.
Right, now then, who was my co-presenter at the UK launch of the CD32?
One in green
Who
first.
was first?
Chris Evans.
That's correct. Yeah. Does anybody know the date of that launch?
1, 2.
Yeah, but I want the date.
October 21st.
Very specific reason for the date too. Well, I'll tell you the month, it was September, but I want to know the date.
So all we've got to do is each one does
21st. 21st?
No,
23rd.
no,
The 1st of September.
3rd.
no. When I tell you, you
Come on.
yourselves.
First, second,
It
third,
was actually September 16th, 1993. And you know why it was the 16th? Because our strapline was 16 will never be the same again. Because it was a 32-bit machine, the first ever marketed. So nobody got that one. So anybody know where the launch was held?
Was it Trocadero?
No.
Mavis Hill?
No, if you don't know, you won't be able to guess, I don't think.
It's broad, isn't it?
Science Museum.
It was. Science Museum, you're right. Well done.
We don't know the answers on.
And, okay, the final one I actually mentioned it, his name. Who was my co-managing director at WK?
Kelly Summer.
He worked for me.
Steve Franklin.
No. Steve Franklin got fired.
I'm trying to think of names. And I can see him talking about the football.
Yes.
Yeah, I can picture him. I can't use his name.
Nobody? First name's Colin.
Bradford.
Yes. I don't know what that first.
I reckon
I
it's
think
that.
it they're my questions. Thank you very much.
Can we ask you to do 2 more questions? Just because
Of course.
Yeah?
We'll just invent them on the spot. Who was at the launch of the Amiga 1000?
So what the Commodore location you want to tell us?
Oh, the location. It was actually called. It was Slough.
I knew it began with an S.
Slough it was. Yeah. And that's where I first joined. But it was only a few months before they moved to Corby. Okay, let me think. So I have a distinct question. How? I can ask questions, I don't know the answer. That's not much good, is it? Does anybody know what the name of the project, the new technology that Commodore was working on? Just a second, let me finish the question. The code name of the project that Commodore was working on when Escom bought. He had his hand up first.
I was going to say AAA, but
He's right. It's Hombre.
But he can have it
because it is her. You got a pair of scissors?
No,
Sure. All right.
And one more. Does anybody know? This is a very tough one. But does anybody know who was the man behind Hombre? Eh?
Dr. Ed Hepler.
That's correct. You obviously read the book. You obviously.
I have, and I've spoken to you so many times.
Yeah, and I actually met up with Ed.
I'm his groupie.
All right. You've got Amiga forever there, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I met
All
up
the
with
wrongs,
Ed again
probably,
about
yeah.
3 years ago. We, with friend, we went to Philly, and we invited loads and loads of ex-Commodore people to do a presentation about what the company's going to be. And Ed was there, and he was I've got to tell you, in my opinion, he was like a broken man because he'd worked on this project and it was phenomenal. I mean, I tell you, on my hand on my heart, there is nothing on the market today that comes even close to what Hombre could do. Nothing. It was phenomenal technology. And it wasn't finished when we saw it. But for those of you who don't know, it was a HP RISC-based core to which they put in built-in 3D rendering engine. They've got a chunky planar. It had 5.1 surround sound stereo, which in '94 was a state of the art, and everything else. And honestly, they had it all working for me in software, all cobbled together. Absolutely outstanding. And why those idiots at Escom just let it go, I don't understand that. Why would you spend $15 million buying all the IPs and the rights and then let that go? Doesn't make any sense, does it? Okay, is that it?
That's it, yes.
I want to ask you guys a question. How do you guys feel about other products coming onto the market now that have the Commodore name on them? I want honest responses.
I'd like to see Commodore stuff, but not someone who's just bought a brand and slapped it on a cheap Chinese phone.
Yeah, but I'll take the challenge on that because I've got a cheap Chinese phone here.
Okay. Is it Commodore?
Yeah.
Oh.
But you tell me any phone, mobile phone manufacturer isn't made in China.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So I mean, what you've done is you jumped to the assumption that it's a cheap phone, and they're just capitalising. Well, yes, they are capitalising on it. But Commodore has a fabulous brand name in all of Europe because it was in every retail store in Europe where they sold anything with a plug on it. But I'm just interested because there's been so much conjecture. There's been a lot of arguments and all sorts of things on Facebook in particular about these people are bad, shouldn't be doing that, they've got no right to do this, and only that. And I actually think that's a whole lot of horseshit. I really do. I think that the time has come now where, and I've got Mike, a very good friend of mine at my left here, Mike is Mr. Cloanto, and I'll stand and support him because he has a vision that I think everybody in this room and everybody in the Commodore fraternity would agree with. He wants to set up a legacy for Commodore forever that protects our history and so on and so forth. And if it takes licensing like that sort of thing to raise a few pennies to do that, what's wrong with that? Mike has been fighting the cause to protect Commodore and to protect Amiga, and ever since I've known Mike many years now. In fact, I did a deal with Mike with Professional Paint after the Electronics Arts guys tried to get smart with me about what I was paying for deluxe paint, and they basically put it under me and said, "You can't get another product, so we're going to put the price up." I don't work like that. If they come to me and said, "David, look, we need to talk to you about the price," different story. When they say, "We know you've got nothing else," I prove them wrong. But anyway, what I'm saying is that Mike and I, we go back a long way. Although we didn't talk over 20 years because of my life changed in Australia and all sorts of things. But I know what Mike's legacy wants to be. I know what his heart is, and he's fighting lawsuits from people who just want to fight lawsuits because one of the guys is a lawyer and he's charging all the bills to his company. So he'll keep fighting it forever. Why would he not?
I mean, I think one of the things that did damage the whole kind of sort of thought of having Commodore stuff was that it was a few years ago there was a PC in a Commodore 64 case.
Yeah.
And that really kind of they annoyed so many people because I think they ended up not shipping and people getting dodgy products and things like that. And I think there was I don't know who they'd licensed the name from. Supposedly they'd licensed the name somehow. It was kind of before. It was about probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
And I think that got a lot of people's backs up as soon as you start seeing Commodore branded products because they're expecting that to happen again.
I mean, let's be honest about it. There is no worse culprit for that than ESCOM.
Oh no, you're completely.
Let's be honest about it. They had the rights to it, and look how they fucked it up, right? So, but that's not what we're talking. What we're talking about is if it's done properly, done legitimately. We want to bring. I say we. I'm talking generally, I guess. It'd be a really good thing to have products coming onto the market with a Commodore name on it, because you guys supported it. And if they're good products and they deserve their own place, they'll find their own place in the market. If they're no good, they won't last at all. But what I'm trying to get across to people that, there's a lot of people making new technology for Amiga, and they're having a really tough time because they're not funded, they're doing it themselves. And I'd like to find a way, and I think there is a way, where we could assist those people. But what you do in return is that when the product is finished, they pay a small license fee to use the logos, whether it's Amiga or Commodore or whatever it is, and then that money gets put in and is used for the right purpose. So that way, and then you also have some quality control issues with them, because you make certain that what they produce is worthy of the name. And I think so it's done properly, not just people on the outside coming in. And I think initially these guys, they fell into that trap. These are Italian guys. They registered the name Commodore Business Machine in the UK. It was available, and they registered it totally legally. They recently went to court and they've won the rights to use the Commodore, that logo, because nobody else has been using it, right? And if it doesn't get used for a while, there's an argument that says, well, why can't it be used again? Now, I'm only using these as an example because I've got this proof here that things can happen. Now, if these guys come out in the next few months with a 5G phone, which I'm almost certain is what they should do, then I'd support it, because I'd rather pay them the money than Apple. They're probably made in the same bloody factory. There's no argument about whether it's made in China or not. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah, right. I guess I was after was not the fact it's made in China, but that phone would be a good phone whether it had Commodore or Reebok or Adidas written on the back.
Absolutely.
If it's going on to then support Vampire light boards or something like that, then that's the payoff to us, and that's why we support the phone. But just to go and buy a phone that some guy in Italy has written Commodore on the back of doesn't inspire me to buy it. But if I know there's a payoff down the road, then absolutely I would go for that rather than a Reebok phone.
Yeah,
Or
but
without-
see, in a way, you just answered my
without-
question.
without
because-
seeing that.
Because I think, you know, I believe that I've got to do whatever I can in however little time I've got left, for goodness sake. I've got to try and do what I can to expand and help to generate and keep the Commodore name going one way or another, and the Amiga name. And I think I'm kind of uniquely placed to do that, because most people who know me trust me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a liar, I'm not a cheat, I've never, you know, my reputation stands for everybody to you know,
Yeah.
I've not been perfect, don't get me wrong. And I've not put in the book some of the things that you'd like to hear about. But no, what I'm saying is that I think it's time that people stop fighting.
Yeah.
Stop arguing and fighting and say, right, let's get down, let's get together. None of these people will never come under one company, no way in a million years, nor should they. But they can come under an umbrella where everybody agrees to work with each other and for the benefit of this particular cause, for example. And then once people like you say, yeah, look, we're seeing that there's money being generated and it's supporting developers of Vampire.
Yeah, that changes everything about
because then
stuff with the logo on.
But then I'd also, the argument I would have then is that there'd be some people who say, look, I've been developing this on my own, what do I need Commodore's permission for? Well, it's not that, it's that, but if you display the Amiga logo or the Commodore logo, we can then make certain that A, you get supported because you are legitimately doing what we want, the quality is under control, and at the end of the day, everybody benefits from it. And if you're only talking about, you know, 1 or 2%, which is what I'm talking about, very small amounts of money, which in the scheme of the costing is very minute. But when you're talking volumes of big, you know, huge volumes of products, it can be a huge amount of money, which is for the benefit of the community and for the legacy of Commodore. Can you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah. If that's a stepping stone for that, then fantastic. If it's just to make a few quid for some guy who couldn't care less about the legacy, then perhaps not. But if it's going that way, it sounds great.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, nobody will buy something that doesn't work, or something that's, you know, that's poor quality. And that would definitely be part of the setup, of making certain that we had quality assurance, that, you know, that protected the quality of the name, because that's vitally important.
And I think one of the guys behind like this new Commodore is the guy who's also managing ARS, like the development of the ARS system. So I think they actually care about the Amiga somehow, but I don't know if they have any plans or no idea.
Yeah, but see, what I'm trying to engineer is getting all of those people to talk to each other, but not in an aggravational way. In a let's see if we can make peace. Let's see if we can work together. What is it that you need that you haven't got at the moment? Can we, by working together, provide that? Give you a background.
It's a common goal, isn't it, really?
Pardon?
It's a common goal, really.
Absolutely. And what it is finding something that everybody agrees is a goal worth achieving.
Well, I mean, it's just my opinion, but I mean, like, certain companies have got their unique IPI, I'm not pronouncing the word correctly, IP. So if, I know it's funding obviously as well, but if they could share somehow the IP to benefit each other, if that, I know that's kind of
sure,
weird.
because the thing about IPs are that they are a particular specific to technology usually, and there may not be of any benefit to share your IP that you work hard on.
Yep.
But the thing is, this is that if we take the Amiga as an example, unless somebody reverse engineers, and that's, I've been told by people who've tried that it's very, very difficult to do. You'd still then have the argument about you're not allowed to use the name because and he knows much more about it than I do. But what I'm saying is that if we could generate a society or a body that everybody was working for the same under one umbrella for the same goal, that we're there to help. If you're doing vampires and there's a market for it, we should help you with that. And so therefore we'll work cooperatively. It's a cooperative. That's really what I'm saying. Anyway, I just wanted you guys to think about it and spread the word if you can. I mean, I don't know whether it'll happen or it won't happen, but I'm certainly going to do my best to try and make it happen. And because I'd love to see that, you know.
Yeah, and I think if it's someone like buying, I mean, I don't know how that phone I don't know particularly about that phone, but if it was just someone going onto AliExpress, buying a load of stuff, getting it in, sticking a Commodore name on it, and then, oh, it's now £100 more,
Yeah, that was.
then that's not something I don't think anyone's particularly happy about. If it's that there's something that...
No, well, but what I do, I challenge you though. This is an Android phone, and my phone I use every day is a Huawei, and there's a reason for that, because we have an arrangement with Huawei with Friend, which is what I'm trying to do with these guys as well. But you cannot tell the difference between this and the Huawei phone. They absolutely perform in every single way the same. In fact, I was telling you, I left that Huawei phone in a hotel in Amsterdam, and as soon as I got on the plane, I left it there. So I got in touch with them and they posted it back to me. But it was going to take about 8 or 9 days. And I didn't have anything, I didn't want to buy another phone for that amount of time. So I've had this and I've kept it pristine, I didn't want to use it. But I used it because I needed to. And it works absolutely flawlessly. So I'm saying, why would I give my money to Apple or Samsung? I'd rather give it to somebody who's using Commodore or whatever. If it does the same job, and I mean, obviously you pay a fortune extra for it if it's got Apple's logo on it. Let's be honest about it, the pricing is absolutely outrageous. So that's the comparison I'd like to make, you know. But again, I think it's down to us. We have to have certain that we've got the integrity of the quality control, so that anything that goes out with a Commodore or a Amiga logo on it is fit for purpose. Therefore, you protect the name. And that's where some of the funding that comes in on the licensing goes. It's not a big deal to do that.
If they were using that as a selling point for it, you know, that also funds licensing or funds.
Yeah, well, they don't know about this yet.
No, but you know, it's how it did. I'm not saying it does, but
Yeah.
it might be it's just a good, unbranded generic phone with a logo on it. But if that was a selling point for it, that 1% of the sales go towards supporting this, then yes, that would swing you from buying another phone.
I think what I'm trying to get across here is I think it's very hard to argue that conceptually what I'm talking about is a good thing and can work. That's what I'm trying to get across. I really believe that if we set it up right, that it can work, and that hopefully that will bring all of the warring factors into shaking each other's hands.
Yeah.
So there's no point in fighting, but we're much better as a cooperative and collective, collaborating together than we are fighting our own different things.
Yeah, if they work together, they're possibly going to make more money, aren't they? So.
Well, yeah, and it makes them more, and it makes the brand stronger.
Yeah. No one loses, do they? No one loses.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Hope you've had a good time.
Just one final question. From your point of view, you said that ESCOM was not good, so they put down the Homebrew project. Any reason why they didn't resurrect also the CD32 and just the 1200 and 4000 hours?
You see, I can't answer what was in the minds of morons.
Okay. That's
I really can't, because...
do you think it was still valuable?
Let's look at these factors. First of all, who were ESCOM? ESCOM were getting PCs manufactured with their badge on it, and they were doing very well. Because they were from Commodore, they had all the outlets, they knew where to go, right? Mm-hmm. They decided that they want to buy Commodore. Now, okay, I understand that. If they had used CBM as another branch of ESCOM, so ESCOM PCs and CBM PCs, for which they may be charged a slightly higher price, different design wheels, and probably manufactured in the same place, that makes sense. Why they wanted Amiga, I don't know, because it was completely alien to what their setup was. And then what do? Unbelievably, they go and buy a whole lot of retail stores. They bought retail stores. So they didn't know if they were distributors or manufacturers or retailers. They didn't know what they were. Surprise, surprise, they went bankrupt real quick. But I mean, we went to them, now get this, right? Colin and I went to them. We went to see Manfred Schmidt, we had a meeting with him, because the UK business was still viable. 14 months after Commodore International went bust, we were still trading. It closed 14 months later. We went to Manfred Schmidt and said, right, here's a deal for you. Buy Commodore UK as a going concern. Why would I do that? Well, how about the fact that we are sitting on £6 million worth of tax credits. That if you continue trading in the same manner that we've been trading, which is no reason why you wouldn't, then that means you can probably sell 20 or 30 million pounds worth of goods before you have to start paying tax. That's a pretty damn good reason, I would think, for them to buy us, right? And the Manford Smith said, well, I'm only going to buy it if you, Colin, you, David, you run it. And they said, oh, we don't want to do that. And he said, well, if you're not going to do it, then he said, no, I'm not going to buy it. And he said, just imagine, he said, you'll have to go back to your staff and tell them that they're all going to be out of work because you wouldn't work for me. And Colin said, that's exactly why we don't want to work for you. Now, but can you believe that? So they were given £6 million worth of tax credits in their hand. Now, anybody with half a brain would jump at it. And we had a fabulous reputation. Our reputation is still good. All these years on. They could have just walked into that. A no-brainer. I don't know what you guys think, but I was astounded by it. Completely astounded.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you very much.